Hey guys, how's it going? It's the Anime Over Analyst here, and today I am going to put out my spoiler review of Made in Abyss. Earlier today, I posted my non spoiler review, so if you do not want to be spoiled by the manga whatsoever, and I will be talking about the manga specifically, then do not watch this video. That being said, you've been warned, and I think it's time to start off with my spoiler review. So, Made in Abyss. I love this manga. I love it a lot. It is amazing. I love Riko as a character. She is quite fascinating, and I love her. I love how the mangaka, his name is Akihito Tsukushi. You can just kind of see that for reference there. Um, he is quite a magnificent storyteller. I love how he made Riko a child and then put her in a world that is very adult, very real. It's I mean the world is fantasy. Obviously, it's a fantasy world, but it's got a lot of real elements to it and a lot of dark elements. Really, really dark elements in it, and you're experiencing this world, and it feels lighthearted because you're seeing it through the lens of a child. Much like Promise to Neverland. In fact, when I made my Promise to Neverland reviews, one of my early reviews, I compared it to Made in Abyss because at the time I was seeing reading Promise Neverland like Made in Abyss. I was seeing it as looking at these kids thrown into this world and trying to survive off of it. And so it is really quite fascinating. I'm going to assume that since you clicked on this video and you've been warned that it's spoiler free, that or there's spoilers, that I'm pretty sure you've already known what's going on in this manga. And so I'm not going to try and explain every single detail because I'm probably going to end up doing a volume by volume review as well. This review is going to be more encasing the series in general and just kind of my overall thoughts about it. So, uh, one thing I want to talk about is the art style. I love the art style in this manga. Like this is just the cover page here of of the manga, and I like the first volume is just simply breathtaking, and just kind of flipping from page to page. Like I showed this in my non spoiler video, but I just love this art. Like just kind of getting to see the abyss. We have here the different levels of the abyss and just kind of what it goes. It's weird holding the book like this. It's so weird, but I I feel like it's easier for me to demonstrate what I want to talk about with the books in hand, and it would be really cool to really start up a conversation. And that's kind of why I really wanted to make these reviews, is because this is a book series that I really want to talk about, and I really want to talk about it with someone. I just don't have someone to talk about it with. um so I love the art, and like for example, here's one of the early pieces with the kind of like this eel creature trying to attack Rico when she is out exploring before she meets Reg. In fact, this is the creature that gets blasted literally in the next panel. I didn't even flip the page. You get to see the blast right there. So I really, really enjoy, you know, just the art in this aisle. Just looking at it, it's phenomenal. It's kind of a cross between like just pencils, like a lot of mangaka, and then it's like you get some watercolors thrown in, like even here with like the blood. That's kind of like, it kind of reminds me of someone just taking just water paint or what I think just watercolors and just kind of just splashing it on a little bit. And you see a lot of that in this. In fact, you even here you've got leader who pulls up a blanket and you can kind of see just the watercolors here. So I really wanted to know what this manga looks like without it being in black and white. I wonder if there's like a full colored version of it, like that maybe the author has, because some of this is just astounding. It's so beautifully made. So I love the art. I love it a lot. However, there are times that it can get a little bit confusing. And the one I really, really wanted to point out is, well, okay, it's not in the second volume, but I was gonna show this as an example. Um, Here, this is the inverted forest, and it show you get a few of these images where you're kind of looking at it, and you're like, what am I looking at? It just kind of looks like a lot of inverted lines. It can be really confusing sometimes. And if I didn't know that this was called the inverted forest, and I'm supposed to be looking at things upside down, like maybe if I had turned the book this way, okay, that kind of makes a lot more sense if I just flipped it around a little bit. But it can be a little bit confusing. No, the what I really wanted to point out that I found was the most confusing was actually the fight between Reg and um uh shoot, I'm blinking on his name. Beetle? It's not Beetlejuice. I'm blanking on his name, and I feel like I shouldn't be. It's Bone Druid. This creepy fellow right here, Bone Druid, and the fight between him and Reg. Here's kind of the example I wanted to show. I'm kind of sitting there, and a lot of it's like, what is going on? I have like the entire fight. Some of it was like, okay, something's happening. I can tell that Reg's in a lot of pain half the time, but I'm like, what's going on? And so some of it, like I had to look over a couple times just to kind of make sense. Like even here, we just get these kind of random attacks that hurts Reg, obviously. Like we get that image, and you can clearly tell that Reg's in pain. Reg is in pain, but you have no idea what's going on. So just the fight scenes could be drawn better. That's literally my only criticism when it comes to the art, is that the fight scenes could be drawn better. I can even handle some of those, confusing landscapes, because in the end they are supposed to be a little bit confusing, because it's a whole brand new world. It's supposed to be fantastical. It's supposed to be like, how is this supposed to exist? Period. And so it can be, I can understand it being a little bit confusing. The fight scenes just need to be a little bit better, in my opinion. So that's the art style. Let's just kind of go and talk about the story real quick. So I briefly talked about Rico and Reg, and the story is basically, it's actually kind of simple, and I compared it to Gon finding his dad in Hunter x Hunter. Same premise, honestly. It's uh it's Rico finding her mother, Liza, in the abyss. She's somewhere in the abyss. And at first, she gets her mother's whistle and is like, why do I have her whistle? Whistles aren't given out until the people who give the whistles are dead. And even Liza kind of joked around with her a little bit, saying, oh, yeah, I found it at her grave. And then at the end, Liza's like, oh, by the way, her grave was empty. So, ooh, my bad, my screen went dark. goes. It just happens whenever I talk too much and not actually talk on the computer. Anyways, yeah, it's really, really quite fascinating, just the story. So we got Rico just going through the abyss, and I'm kind of loving just the different elements of how the abyss warped people, how it warped Liza to become so determined. Kind of shows like how Liza's love for not Light, yeah, Liza's love for shoot, what's her mother's name? I'm blanking on Rico's mother's name. It's Rico's mother's name is either Liza or yeah. Anyways, you'd think I'd be more prepared than this to talk about it, but I only just reread chapter 7, 8, and 9 because 9 came out 2 weeks ago. So I haven't reread the first 6 volumes since last year. And I was initially going to make this type of video back when I first started this channel. In fact, this whole channel was supposed to be mainly about Made in Abyss, not Promised Neverland. It just so happened that when I was reading Promised Neverland, I was like, wow, I'm getting a lot of Made in Abyss vibes. So I swapped it over to that because Promised Neverland was more recent and it was coming out with the second season, so I could time it better. But now that that's over and this newest volume came out, I really, really want to talk about Made in Abyss. So I'm going to put a pin on the names. And if you've known my channel, you know I am terrible with names. I believe Rico is, Rico is Liza's daughter. And I'm blanking on the name of the protector. The the person that, stops her towards the end of the second volume. Maybe it will help if I actually look at Ozen. That's Ozen. You see, all it just took was me flipping through it, and this is why I really wanted to do the review with the mangas in hand, and not do it like I did with my Promised Neverland with slides, because I feel like I could talk about it better with the actual physical volumes. So, yes. Yep. All right. So, I really, really do enjoy seeing just the progression, seeing how the Abyss has warped, Ozen. How Ozen becomes so determined for Liza. I like seeing how how it warped Bone Druid. How Bone Druid kind of went crazy a little bit, and how Bone Druid started experimenting on children. Like, I saw that, and that just blew my mind. Just these stupid experiments, these crazy experiments, where he's trying to figure out how to go down into the bottom layer and come back up, because no one's been able to do that. And so by sending those children down and bringing them back up super fast, it boggles my mind. And the way he made Nanachi, this rabbit looking character, you can't really see it because of the glare, but Nanachi is such an amazing character. I loved Nanachi because Nanachi put up with so much, just trying to accept her friend's fate, Mitty's fate, when Mitty became kind of part of Nanachi, and how Nanachi became a hollow, and the whole aspects of the hollows, which really, really started taking place in the last 3 volumes, 7, 8, and 9. And their whole city on like the bottom of the abyss. That whole city is fascinating. I love reading about just that city and just what it means to have worth. Like Ma, this character right here, how this character got torn apart only because he was a little too rough with Mania, the little pet. And that just, this is Mania right here. he was a little too rough, and so something called the balancing happened and just tore him apart. And like that is incredibly dark. And just reading through this and just seeing all the dark things that happening, and Riku takes it like a champ. But Riku and Reg are a solid unit. I wouldn't call him a single character, not like um Sora and I think also Rico from Sword or not Sword Art Online from No Game No Life. It's Sora and I don't remember his sister's name. But basically Reg is an interesting character because he's trying to figure out himself while trying to protect Rico. He's kind of like the Natsu, I suppose, of Made in Abyss. Natsu in Fairy Tail is constantly trying to protect Lucy because Lucy, let's be frank here, she ain't that strong, at least in hand-to-hand combat. She has plenty of magic power, but this isn't a Fairy Tail video. This is a Made in Abyss video. And I'm just saying, Rico isn't physically strong. She's got a lot of strength in her moral character, and that's part of the reason why I love her. She is incredibly strong in her moral character, in herself. But physically, she can't protect herself, mostly against these insane creatures. And so that's why we have Reg. And it's really fascinating seeing how Reg is almost developing more as a person than Rico. Honestly, Rico from Chapter 9, or Volume 9, and Rico in Volume 1 are pretty much the same character. Same personality, same everything. And there's very little changes. There might be a little bit more maturity as things go on, because in Volume 1, Rico is more naive. Whereas in Volume 9, she is almost a bit more assured. She understands the Abyss a whole lot more. So, in that aspect, she's changed a little bit. Reg is trying to figure out himself. He doesn't even know himself. And it's really fascinating kind of seeing his progression. And I love his interaction with Faputa. Yeah, with Faputa. Faputa is kind of like the main villain in Volume 9. And that's because Faputa is kind of created. She's fated to be evil, more or less. That's kind of the best way I could describe it. It's her fate to be evil. And in a way, I think that she doesn't like it. She even asks Reg about his incinerator, and she terms it as it has the ability to unwrite things, which is fascinating. It's it's interesting because in a way that incinerator kind of unwritten Mitzi. It unwritten her existence because Mitzi was immortal. She could not die. And the incinerator made it possible for her to perish. And so that in itself is quite amazing. And like I said, I really enjoy reading about this village on the bottom of the abyss. They have their own language, and trying to read the language is a bit difficult, but it's not impossible, and it's once again, it makes complete sense because it's its own little thing. And the learning the history. In fact, this character here, Belaf, he's also one of my favorite characters. Mainly because, in a way, he's kind of a bro. Just kind of going back into his past. He's always kind of there for the ones he cares about. Let's see now. What was. Da, 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 what's her name? Anyways, like I said, I am terrible with names. Waco. Waco. The way he treats Vueko is amazing. Thankfully, I have this page of names right here, so I can always refer to the names. But yes, I just love how he interacts with Vueko, and when he finds out about what he was eating back when that they had those parasites in them because they were drinking that clear water. And that clear water was, you know, very toxic. It contained that parasite, and how freaking Bella, how he was just torn apart because they basically made Faputa into a monster in order to survive. That's kind of what not Faputa. Faputa's mother. They turned Faputa's mother into a monster in order for them to survive. And then Faputa's mother gave birth to Faputa in order for Faputa to seek revenge for her mother. That's kind of the basic nutshell. I know that's a little bit confusing, but like I said in the beginning of this video, I'm gearing this video towards more of the people who have already read the manga as opposed to who haven't read, because this is more of me talking about what makes me excited. And there are so many things that makes me excited about this. I haven't even talked about like some of the controversial artistic choices that Sakushi makes, because there are some very controversial ones that, how he draws the girls, namely being that he likes to draw them topless, and they're 12-year olds, like, yeah. And I think that's going to be a discussion video for another time. Comment down below if you're actually interested in my thoughts about, that whole topic. More or less. I did explain them a little bit in my original video, so I'm not gonna go into too much depth. All I'll just say is that I I liked reading this series as an adult. I think that's very important. I read it with an adult mindset, and that's kind of how you have to experience it. And so I might make an entire separate video about some of the edgy content that's in here, some of that controversial, you know, using 12-year-old children and showing them topless. But yeah, if you want, just check out my spoiler-free review, and that will have more of my thoughts on it. But I think it'll be much better if I come out with an actual video just based on that topic itself. So, yeah, that's going to be it for me. I've rambled on for 23 minutes, which is plenty enough. Like I've said in my previous video, I do recommend anybody to read this manga. Just read it with an open mind, I say. So, anyways, I've been the Anime Over Analyst, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.